Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. I was sent a couple of clips of a new podcast Andrew Tate did. To be honest, I was going to skip over it as I'm trying to take the channel in a new direction. But since references were made to the Qur'an a few times, I thought it was only right to clarify the claims being made. Tate spoke about how he doesn't agree with Dan Bilzerian's choice of living a monogamous lifestyle, as he favours polygyny more. He also spoke about how he supports Elon Musk, a billionaire that is pro-Israel, creating AI chips to install in people's brains. Let's take a look at the Dan Bilzerian segment first.
You know Dan Bilzerian quite well.
Yeah.
Dan's changed his whole thesis on this by living the hedonistic lifestyle. He's obviously getting closer to God now. He's finding God. He's finding purpose. But he says now. He openly said, I saw on the podcast the other week. He's talking about monogamy now. You would never talk about monogamy, would you?
No, I wouldn't. And I know Dan quite well, and I respect him a lot. He's a great guy, and I don't want to speak for him because he's his own man. However, his attitude towards women was never procreation. I think if Dan would have had 20 children across the last 5 years, he wouldn't be looking at monogamy right now. He'd actually be very happy with what he'd done, and he'd be considering making 20 more. So monogamy is perhaps what he wants to set up before he creates children. That's his choice.
So where you've approached it differently is you've gone, right, I will date multiple women, but I'll have children with multiple women as well.
If I'm going to have a girlfriend, there has to be a chance of a child appearing. God can decide, but there should be a chance of a child appearing.
Kings have always had multiple wives. Kings have always had mistresses. Kings always have. The way I would try and find a wife in Dubai is completely different than the way I'd try to find a wife somewhere else.
You'd find a wife in Dubai?
I don't think so. But if I wanted to, it's a different game. You have to understand the board before you make a move on it.
You and I both know there are no wives in Dubai.
So what game are you playing?
Well, not the wife game.
Well, that's it. So there's only two other games, which is hedonism or reproduction. Everybody will go out there and do something that they know perhaps the Bible or the Quran says they shouldn't do, but they'll do it and they'll rationalize it. Perhaps I've rationalized promiscuity, saying, but I'm creating children. I'm not hedonistic. I'm creating kids. I'm a good person. But am I? Or do I just want all those beautiful women to adore me?
The guy interviewing Tate seems to have his head screwed on properly. He said that Dan has changed his life for the better and has decided to settle for a monogamous lifestyle after leading a very promiscuous one and is trying to get closer to God. I respect that, and yes, I can also confirm Dan has made it public that he has read the Quran and thinks very highly of Islam. Andrew Tate considers Dan Bilzerian a friend and was quite respectful towards him, but Tate did say he does not agree with Dan's choice to be in a monogamous relationship with just one woman, as Andrew himself prefers polygyny. As a Muslim man, he has that right. The Quran tells us a man is entitled to have up to 4 wives under the strict conditions that he's indistinguishably just and equally fair to them all. But if a man is unable to do so, he must marry only one woman. However, Tate mentioned the words girlfriends and God's will in the same sentence, astaghfirullah. He also stated his prerogative when it comes to intimacy with women is having children, and if Dan had done so when Dan was dating multiple women, Dan too would not presently be choosing monogamy. Let's unpack that. Firstly, having a girlfriend or physical relations outside of marriage is totally forbidden in Islam. This applies to having children outside of wedlock also. The Quran tells us that zina, meaning adultery or fornication, is a major sin that we must stay away from. So as a Muslim, Andrew should not be promoting this. To be fair to Dan, he has been open about how he was addicted to physical intimacy, along with things like gambling and intoxicants, and in order to beat those addictions, he now chooses a monogamous lifestyle to keep him on the straight and narrow. Contrary to what Andrew said, I think if Dan did have kids while dating multiple women, it would have been a mess because of where he was mentally due to his hedonistic lifestyle, and not to mention how he probably wouldn't have been the best role model as a father to those hypothetical kids. As far as Andrew's claim that men should only be with women to procreate, if we look at that from the Islamic perspective of a married couple, this statement has elements of truth. But in Islam, marriage between a man and a woman is also in place for both spouses to fulfill their physical desires, as well as to be a source of comfort, companionship, and support for one another. So no, women are not just baby-making machines. Islam gives us many more rights. Andrew admitted that he does things the Quran tells us not to do and rationalizes it, just like many Muslims do, as we're all prone to sin because we're human. But he was specifically referring to how he may be using having kids as an excuse to have access to multiple women. That isn't that much different from what he was accusing Dan of doing before Dan chose monogamy. To be fair to Andrew though, the first step of correcting a mistake is admitting it. In my humble opinion, I think he needs to concentrate more on learning about Islam and only having kids with women he marries, so he has some Islamic knowledge to pass on to his children. Let's watch the next clip where he surprisingly says he supports supports Elon Musk's ambitions to install AI chips in people's brains.
Some extremely exceptional people who are extremely motivated to make radical change. I like to believe they can save America. If they can get to space first, which it looks like they can with Elon's help, if they can get AI under control before the Chinese can, which it looks like they can once again with Elon's help, Elon's extremely important. If they can do those things, they can cement American hegemony into the coming century. So I really think that America's been saved. I look forward to perhaps even living there and moving there.
But do you think that Elon's got his best intentions at heart? Because at the end of the day, this is the man that's talking about putting chips in people's heads.
Well, yeah, there's no light without dark.
So there is a dark essence to him.
100. Well, of course there is. Of course there is.
What is that in your opinion?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can look at Elon from your perspective, and you can say he's an evil person who's trying to make cyborgs control us all, or you can say he's a person who's trying to advance technology and help people who can't walk again.
Which one do you believe he is?
Well, I don't have to believe he's either one, because.
But you would have a belief.
No, but I like Elon, so I believe he's intelligent enough to understand that if the technology can be invented, it will be invented. So good or bad actually has nothing to do with it. His argument is pretty simply that if we don't make the technology, someone else will. And I actually believe I have better intentions, or America as an entity has better intentions than if the Chinese get to the technology before we do, because it's coming either way. Is it a scary future with AI and chips in our brains? Absolutely.
But isn't it even scarier that the man that controls the AI, that controls the chips, that controls the car, that's collecting all the data, that's controlling the robots, that's putting the chip in your head and firing the satellites up in that are doming over you, isn't it the man's the same guy that controls all of that? Isn't that dangerous?
Is it dangerous that a man has that much power? Isn't it more dangerous that we had people in charge of nuclear weapons who thought that women could be a man if they shave their head and take testosterone? Isn't it more dangerous that we had people saying that a man can compete with a woman in sports without a biological advantage? Isn't that dangerous?
I believe all those things are dangerous, but I still think it's imperatively dangerous that one man controls all those narratives.
Okay, true. It gives him almost unchecked, unprecedented power. You're right. So he's monopolized power because he's monopolized very important industries, which are going to be innovative and control the future and control different planets, perhaps. But how do you fix that? I mean, we can try and break up his monopoly, but if he's the only one with the expertise, then the technology simply doesn't get invented at all by the West.
But you've always said that you're a man of God, right?
Correct.
And in the Bible and in the Qur'an, it talks about, you know, people in sheep's clothing coming into this world, looking like a saint, but not being that way.
I don't think he's a saint. I don't think he's a saint. What I'm saying is, if we prevent Elon from having a monopoly over industries that he's the most competent in, that he's the only person who can advance us as quickly as he's advancing us in. If we slow him down via regulation, or we slow him down out of fear, it does not stop these things being made. Instead, they're going to be made by a different culture that we don't understand behind a technology wall, who might weaponize these things against us. My argument would be, if I had to flip a coin, I would choose somebody who believes in Western ideals above somebody who has no interest in me, or doesn't think like me, or doesn't understand me when I talk.
I will make it clear, I do not see Elon Musk as a moral person, hence why I wouldn't trust him with any brain-altering technology whatsoever. I have nothing against people wanting the best for the citizens of the United States, as there are millions of Muslims over there. However, when Tate speaks about the US government expanding their space program and monopolizing AI through Elon Musk like it's beneficial for humanity, I disagree. It will simply benefit the establishment, not the general public. Andrew said he prefers America to make these advancements rather than China. If we look at the cause of most of the wars and invasions around the world, in some capacity the US is involved. I don't see America as having any moral high ground over China at all. So with that said, wouldn't it be better if the warmongers had less power? And as far as Elon Musk goes, he openly supports Israel and Zionism, something Tate said he himself is against. Additionally, Musk now works for the US government. So if anything, Elon is the epitome of the so-called matrix Tate is supposedly against. Let's be real here. Both America and Israel are responsible for the current massive scale of oppression going on in the Middle East. So anybody that is involved with these entities on an internal political level is a dangerous and questionable individual. Again, credit to the guy interviewing Tate, as he asked a very valid question when he said, how can we trust Elon Musk's intentions when it comes to his plans for installing AI brain chips in people's heads? Honestly, that sounds like the actions of a supervillain to me. Ask yourself, what would these chips tell us to do? How would they condition us to think? We would most likely be programmed by Israeli and American marketing and propaganda. Why as humans would we want to give another human being, especially one one as immoral as Elon Musk control over us like this, when even God Almighty gives us the gift to think for ourselves? The Quran tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given human beings free will as well as guidance, and it is up to us to choose to do the right thing. The host asked Andrew another good question when he said, how can Tate be okay with Musk's potentially underhanded plans while claiming to be a man of God? And the interviewer was correct when he said the Quran speaks of people who hide their evil intentions from their fellow human beings, when he was referring to Elon Musk. Andrew's response was that despite Elon's lack of morality, he still supports him because there is no way of stopping him and because he represents Western ideals. Though I agree there is no way of stopping Musk, we should at the very least be completely against literally having our brains programmed by a nutjob that endorses Zionism. One of Andrew's quotes is resist the slave mind, but here he seems to be saying the complete opposite. Elon Musk is not one of the good guys, and although he may be a mastermind when it comes to business and technology, we should be very wary of following an evil genius just because he has money, power and clout. Thank you for watching. Make sure to join my free Telegram group via the link in the description, where we as Muslims can speak freely and without censorship about issues like this. And remember to like, subscribe and become a channel member for access to exclusive content. Until next time, inshallah, Jazakallah khair.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.